All right, you guys, welcome back to the show. First off, I just want to apologize that I completely ghosted you guys. It's been a rough 3 weeks, which I feel like the past few weeks for everybody has probably been equally as rough. Um, but I am sorry that I just disappeared. But 3 weeks ago, I actually had this episode planned because I saw on Facebook somebody pose that same question that gets posed every year as soon as the cold weather hits. And it is, when is it too cold to ride? And I found myself asking this question every year. And um and y'all know it, I'll be the first to say that I will use the crappy weather, the cold, the wind, the rain, the snow, all of it to be some sort of a crutch or an excuse not to go out and do the thing. So of course, when I ask the question, a few times I've heard if it's anything less than 30 degrees, no riding. This year, I saw the number 20 degrees getting tossed around. And then it brought me to kind of want to look into that more. And what I found is that it's definitely more of a nuance. It's definitely not a one number fits all situation. So, welcome back to Bulls and Barrels Company. Okay, so quick disclaimer. I am not a professional, and this is just supposed to be a conversation, really just something to kind of make you think about it. But you should always, always, always consult a veterinarian or a professional that you trust. But if I give you a little bit of food for thought or you think about it, at least you have something more than just a blanket statement of, well, it's 28 degrees out or less, so I'm not going to do anything with my horse today. So full disclaimer, do not come for me. This is just a conversation with myself and you. So I wanted to do this a little bit different because I noticed that a lot of my episodes, especially when it comes to informational, I'm talking really quick. I feel like I'm missing a lot of the point that I want to make. So I have a lot of notes here. So if you see me looking down, it's because I'm generally just trying to keep my thoughts aligned, because a lot of times my brain is going really fast and my mouth isn't quite getting it out. So I apologize if I ever break the contact here with you guys. I don't have a fancy teleprompter, so I have to kind of look down and gather my thoughts. So bear with me on this one. But I designed it to be more of a Q&A style, so that way we can really kind of break apart this topic and get really in depth with it. So the first question that I asked when I was doing my research is there an official temperature where it is too cold to ride? Okay. And so that's where that 20 degrees Fahrenheit, at least this year, came up. Previous years, I've heard anything below 30. And this year, that 20 degrees seemed to be the most tossed around number. And what that actually comes from is it's actually the caution point. That is where, if your horse is heavy breathing, cold air that's below that 20-degree threshold, it can damage the lungs. So there's definitely validity to that 20-degree Fahrenheit number that we heard getting tossed around, but that's not a hard stop. Okay, that 20-degree temperature, from what I've researched, is for your harder, intense work where you really get your horses breathing heavy and breaking a sweat. Okay, so you definitely you don't want to be doing any hard laboring with your horses when it's below that 20-degree Fahrenheit. Okay, so the next question is, why does that 20-degree number get mentioned? And again, that is because of how cold air affects a horse's respiratory system during hard work. So below freezing, especially below 20 degrees, breathing cold, dry air at high rates, so breathing really fast, can irritate the lower airways, and that is where veterinarians advise caution. But there's an important part, and that guidance applies to trotting, cantering, galloping, or intense schooling. Okay. So we don't want to be out there really riding our horses hard, doing long trots. For us barrel racers, anything that would constitute conditioning. But that does not include all movement. Okay. And then, so during my research, that's when I was like, okay. So all of the previous episodes I've talked about, as far as, you guys heard me talk about Jack Ballou and her walking workouts and pole work and ground work, all of those could potentially be safe in that 20 or below range. So that brings me to question 3. So what about walking? Is that safe below 20 degrees? And so if you think about it, we do turn our horses out when it's cold, or at least I do. I know I've seen, over the past couple of weeks on Facebook, there's some people who opted to keep their horses inside during these cold spouts. There's some of us that just blanket them up and send them out. And there's some horses out there that have no blankets. They just are relying on the fur that God gave them, and they're out. And I was observing my horses during one 13-degree day, and they were outside, they were walking around, they were playing, and they were just fine. Okay, so that's kind of when I was like, is it them that dislikes that cold work, or is it me? And it's definitely me, guys. If I go outside and the air hurts my face, it ain't for me, okay? I've got the heated jacket and the heated socks, but if the air just hurts my face and my fingers are freezing inside the gloves, then I know that that's a no-go for me. But I know that the horses can actually handle a lot more than we can. Shoot, I mean, they're animals. They're built to be outside, okay? So yes, this is where I think the conversation becomes more nuanced, okay? According to veterinary guidance that I found doing my research, this included Pet MD, equine veterinary winter exercise guidelines. So low intensity movement like walking is generally safe even below 20 degrees because it does not elevate breathing rate enough to stress the lungs. So hand walking, light walking under saddle, or controlled movement keeps joints loose, supports circulation, and benefits mental health without the respiratory risks associated with harder work. Now, what are some things that we should be concerned with when it comes to walking? Okay, so older horses walking up and down a hill might actually be too much for them. So you need to make sure that you are watching your horse as you're putting them through one of your walking workouts, that if they start breathing heavy, that you kind of throttle back a little bit. Something else that I've had to consider is, what are the conditions outside? I don't have an indoor arena. So when it got really cold, my driveway was super icy and slick. And even my outdoor arena, my husband cleared it off. But even that, some of the ground was very uneven and it was frozen like that. And I also don't want my horses to, twist an ankle. Okay, because that's all we need, right? So in that case, doing some, Jack Ballou, and I know I refer to her a lot, but in her book, she does have some workouts that you can do where you can just do it in a barn aisle. Set up some poles and walk up and down your barn aisle, standing on uneven surfaces. I bought a exercise mat, and you can tell when the horses are standing on it, it allows procreation throughout their body. And because it's different for them, pick up a foot, you see them kind of tighten up in muscles. So there's still things that we can do to keep movement in our horses, even if it is cold. But even if it is cold, you have to consider all of the other conditions that encompass just merely walking. So for me, there was definitely a couple days where I felt like I could go out. It was 13 degrees out, but I was also limited on where I could even walk my horses because my driveway is my ideal spot that I like to work my horses because I have a long driveway and there's a hill. And with these cold spouts, it was just an ice skating rink. So, and then also, getting to my arena, you have to walk across the driveway. And I remember one night I attempted to do it with Bo, and he had a little bit of a slip. He didn't go down, but I was like, well, this is futile. So what I ended up doing is taking the two younger horses and just doing some of those exercises that I was talking about inside the barn, because at least that gave them something instead of nothing. So take that for what it is. You should just get her books. I'm telling you, it is. I can't say it enough, and I get no sponsorship out of it, but it truly, like, those workouts really help out, especially this time of year. So, okay. So question 4 that I have is, is 30 minutes of hand walking too much in cold weather? So really, we've discussed that quite a bit. I feel like, I mean, we talk about, is it too cold out, but also, like, is it too long? And if we remember, I talked about in another episode, when we were discussing JetBlue, is that really you need to get north of 20 minutes of working with your horse for them to actually even be warmed up. So 30 minutes was the ideal number that I was walking my horses prior to the great freezing of New York, and also the world, because I know that, Texas was definitely feeling the pressure from this cold weather. So I know it wasn't just us in the upstate. But so for most healthy horses, acclimated horses, no, 30 minutes of walking is usually appropriate, even in colder temperatures, as long as the horse stays comfortable and isn't sweating or breathing heavily. Okay. So many veterinarians actually prefer walking over stall rest during the winter, because movement supports joint and digestion. So is 30 minutes too long in the cold weather? No, but again, pay attention. Are they breathing heavy? Is the ground safe for them to work? And really, I mean, also, can you stay outside for 30 minutes? I know there was one night I was out there doing it, and I think I stopped at 20 minutes because my face just hurt so bad. But I mean, my horses were fine. I stuck my hand up in their blankets. They were nice and warm, and they weren't puffing. If anything, they were just kind of just moseying along with me. And really, the hill beat me up, I think, more than it beat them up. So 30 minutes is not too long of a time to be out in the cold. Think about it. Your horses are probably turned out for at least 8 hours a day, if not more. So hopefully that helps. So I want to take a quick break and toss it to my one and only sponsor, which is myself. So here is a quick little ad from Bulls and Barrels Company. We'll be right back.
This episode is supported by Bulls and Barrels Company. Built on grit, discipline, and cowgirl work ethic, Bulls and Barrels Co. creates apparel for those who earn everything they have. Inspired by life in the barn, the gym, and the saddle, this brand exists to remind you why you started. Every purchase helps support this podcast and the stories we share here. Shop the brand and support the show at Bulls Barrels Co. Launchcart, Storeslesh.
All right, guys, welcome back, and thank you for listening to my quick little advertisement for Bulls and Barrels Company. Just if you haven't noticed, I am wearing a beanie inside, and it's for advertisement purposes only. I developed a cattle brand, though. So I have a whole line hopefully dropping this month. So if you love this, you'll be able to own it at some point. But let's get back to, is it too cold to ride? So question 5, what matters more than temperature itself? So we've talked about the temperatures and we've talked about duration, but I think ultimately the number one thing to consider is conditions. Conditions. Wind chill, moisture, footing plays a bigger role than temperature alone does. I've already discussed icy, horses don't really have traction. All right. And unless they're wearing some sort of a boot that gives them traction, so slipping on ice is something we don't want to do to our horses, especially in this off season of time. They go down and they break a knee or they pull a tendon and then we're out for the entire season. That would just be silly to do that, especially because this time of year is our off season. So a dry, still 15-degree day with good footing can be safer than a 28-degree day with wind, ice, and frozen ruts. Most winter injuries happen because of footing, not because it was too cold to be doing the work. So I found that to be very profound, and I wanted to make sure that I shared that with you guys because I definitely was out walking my horses. I think it started out at 13 degrees and then it rapidly dropped to 10 degrees, and we had a great workout session. But that is the fact of the matter, is that it could be 28 degrees, but if it is windy or maybe you have that freezing rain coming down, you have to consider all the factors, not just, oh, well, it's too cold out, I'm not going to ride today, or I'm not going to work with my horses today. So question 6, are there horses that need more caution? And I think I feel like common sense would tell you that, right? But absolutely, horses that are older or have respiratory conditions, are underweight, clipped without proper blanketing, or not acclimated to the cold should be managed more conservatively. So again, this is such a nuanced question that you have to look into yourself. Can you handle those cold temperatures? You have to look at your horse. Can they handle doing any sort of work in those cold temperatures? Maybe you just bought a horse from Arizona and this is their first winter. You might want to give them a little time to figure that out. Or, you have an older horse that has any sort of respiratory disorders where maybe heaves. You want to make sure that you pay close attention to that. We do not want to do any more damage during this time. Like, we want to always keep progressing and keeping our horses in shape, because I think that is our duty, owning horses, is to keep them in shape, because domestic horses are certainly not getting the amount of exercise or movement that they should. If you think about it, a lot of our horses are held in these small pens or small acreage or kept in stalls. And so it's really our job to make sure that we're providing them some sort of exercise or movement daily. That really shouldn't be that is a non-negotiable, I feel like, when it comes to these horses. And I'm not saying that to I think attack is the wrong word, but I don't want to lecture you on that, but I'm also lecturing myself, because I've definitely have been one in the past where I use weather as a crutch to not do something with my horses. But while researching this topic and, over these past few months, really reading into JetBlue, you realize just how important it is to give your horses some sort of work, okay? And like I said, even if that's doing some sort of stationary work in the barn because the weather is just that bad outside, or it's just taking them for a 30-minute walk. If you do have access to an indoor arena, you don't have to do anything other than put a halter on them and walk them. I know a lot of times people will turn their horses out in an indoor arena, but I've definitely have done that with my horses, and then I just watch them stand at the gate. So physically walking your horses might actually be the better route to go. And honestly, like, especially lately, I've had to do, in this challenge, I've had to hit 10,000 steps, and walking my horses for 30 minutes has been a huge help in hitting those 10,000 steps. So if you just need to get your activity up, especially because it's wintertime and we all, I feel like, get into a sedentary lifestyle, maybe taking a 30-minute walk with your horse is a good idea. Put a little podcast in, audiobook, and just get those horses moving. So All right. So question 7 is, what is the key takeaway from all of this information? And what I think it is it's not whether or not is it too cold to ride, right? It is not just a, yep, it's below 20, we're done. It is way more than that. I think, and this is my aircraft mechanic background coming out, but I think you really do need to have some sort of like, not a fault tree, but, is it too cold to ride? Shouldn't be it. It should be, what is the footing? What is this? What is my horse's condition? Do I have a horse that has heaves? And just really kind of work through it that way, not just be like, all right, well, it's 10 degrees out, so I'm just going to let my horses stand out in the pasture and call it good for today. I know just watching my 2 horses, like every once in a while, the 2 that are out together, you'll see them kind of walk around and play. But for the most part, they stand in the same spot and they stare at the house. And that's just when I'm here. So I know that even though they're turned out, they're not getting constant movement. So just because your horses are turned out doesn't mean that they are getting the exercise that they need. Okay. So this last question, I threw in. I don't really think it has anything to do with um, the question at hand of it, is it too cold to ride? But what can we be doing during this time when we can't be out there riding our horses hard every single day? And I would say that the first thing to do is to focus on yourself during this time of year, because we aren't spending a lot of time in the saddle, which that takes time to do a really good conditioning routine and training and whatnot. So we're given back a lot of time. And I think, especially during my off season, that's when I start to focus on my fitness more. And as I discussed a few weeks ago, I'm in the middle of doing the Burl Racer Fit consistency series. I think I have 2 weeks left, and so far it's been great. I can't wait to give you guys like the full hot wash of that program, but just hitting those 10,000 steps, drinking my water, hitting my workouts. And I've also added in 20 minutes of stretching every day as a non-negotiable, because it's really helped my pain management. And also, I think yoga is just one of those things that they say that horse riders should do. And it's one of those things that's super easy to do and super easy not to do. So I'm proud of myself to have kept that up for the past 4 weeks. But I've seen I would say a good steady weight loss. That wasn't my main goal of doing this, but obviously like getting in better shape is great. I'm noticing that I feel like I can hold my body position better. And I really do believe that a lot of the issues that I had in the past riding was because I wasn't in shape to ride. So definitely take this time. If you can't spend hours with your horses riding them and getting them their hard workouts, give yourself those hard workouts. Give that time back to you, because we too need to be athletes. If we put the same energy into ourselves that we do our horses with their diet and their exercise routines and their supplements, because we are part of that team. Like, this is a team event. It is you and your horse. So we both need to be held to that same standard. And so over the past 4 weeks, and I have 2 weeks left, I feel like I'm doing this for my horses, because I know my mare, if I don't ride her, if I'm up there like a monkey, all like out of balance, she lets me know. That's usually when she like stops and looks back at me and gets all defiant. So I know that I'm doing the right thing, even though I can't get out there every day and do 30-minute workouts with her. And so that brings me into the second thing that I do. And I actually discovered this idea last year. So when I bought the mare and I was trailering to my friend's place, she noticed that when I rode, I was always really far forward. And that's, I think, because my flexibility wasn't there. And also, I had zero core balance. And so, to work on that, I actually set up in my living room a saddle stand with a saddle that I don't really care about because I think that it over time kind of messes with like the shape of the saddle. So this is just a junk saddle that I have laying around. So I don't recommend doing this with one of your nice saddles. But I set it up in the living room, and when we're watching TV, instead of just laying there, I'll actually get up in the saddle and I'll work on my position in the saddle, and I'll just be post trotting and making sure that instead of squeezing with my inner thighs, which is what I recognize that I was doing over the past couple of years, I focus on keeping my feet under me and using just my calves and lifting myself up. And it actually is quite a workout. If you set a timer for like 5 minutes, I promise you, you'll feel some sort of a burn. And I've been doing this for about the last 4 weeks now. And I've noticed that in the beginning, I kind of would always feel myself going back to that very leaned forward position. And now I'm actually able to keep my butt in the saddle. And like, I know it's helping my body positioning, and muscle memory is a thing. So I'm hoping that when it's time to get back in the saddle for real, that my body will just go into that. So if you want to take those two pieces of advice as we try to close out this winter, I know that silly groundhog saw his shadow again. Yeah, Phil, must be nice being a rodent. Um, but let's just hope. I know for us up here in New York, this weekend is supposed to dip down really cold again. But then going into next week, we're supposed to see some 30-degree temperatures again. So fingers crossed that winter has just about had enough with us, because I know that we have had enough with her. So with all that being said, just remember, and I know that I had a beat down with myself here on the show, but this really isn't about being tough or being soft. It's really about being informed and making the right choice for not only you, but for your horse. So instead of asking, is it too cold to ride? It should just be, should I ride? Or should today be a groundwork day? Or today is just going to be a day that I work on body work? Because all of those things count and all of those things matter. And I'm saying this to myself. Cold weather doesn't automatically mean no movement. You got to get your butt out there. So hopefully this brought you guys some clarity on that topic. And until next time, get out there and earn that ride today. We'll see you next time.